Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look here. I'll show. I wanted to make a video just to, like I said, I was going to do about showing you real quick about the game. I also did a new setup. So the new setup is I'm down here in the corner, and I got the game playing, and I even have a little bit of a drawing tool that I set up. Something I've been meaning to try for a while now, which allows for me to draw over the screen, which is super cool. I'm really happy about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a quick video showing you where it is. Now, I don't remember where you saw it last, but I think there has been some developments since then. And I think I've also told you a little bit my philosophy on the process that I'm doing here, which is mainly just kind of working on it when I have a moment, and sort of like just expanding on it more and more and doing things like that. There's a lot to do. Like, I mean, I have like a settlement idea where you're building a base, and I have cinematics that represent like events and things, and how the systems that I want to build for it. But I'll just sort of reiterate a little bit what I was thinking of how my approach is going to be, and it was to start with the battle system, because the battle system is probably, in terms of programming, the most complex thing for sure. Having a cinematic play and then giving the players like a couple choices, kind of like Mass Effect choices in dialogue systems and things like that, tracking those dialogue systems, creating systems that allow for localization. Like that for me is pretty straightforward. It's really simple. But when you have like dynamic systems that, like, if you're playing like this hex based, hold on. If you're playing like this hex-based thing that, you do an action that could cause reactions, that can cause reaction, all these chain reactions, that all those chain reactions are prioritized. Not only is that going to be a lot of iteration in terms of like gameplay balancing and things, but it's also going to be, a challenge to create the system. So that's where I am right now. Now, I do have a very good framework, and I think I figured it out. It's just now building it. So long story short, that's what I meant by, starting with the battle system. I'm just trying to get don't know why. Sometimes my joystick unhooks, which is a little weird. There we go. So let's go ahead and take a look. So battle system, what I did was I added a little patch of grass in the middle. That's just sort of to ground everything and make it look a little bit more interesting for people who don't want to stare at programming art all day. And I've also added these little assets that are basically, I believe I bought those assets on the asset store many, many years ago. So it was nice to have. I brought those in. Their animations are not plugged in. There's an idle on them, but they're not doing anything. And I think the only custom animation was for this big guy I wanted to do. I wanted to give him a very specific pose. So for that guy, I posed them out. But other than that, for attacking and things like that, or movement, there's no run, there's no walk, there's no attack animation that's plugged in just quite yet. I could cycle through the characters. So what I have here is a little bit of art and UI going on. Oh, my face is in the way. So yeah, I'm also going to be learning a little bit what to do with the face and stuff. I'll put them up there. There we go. That's cool. Now if I click, oh, there we go. Okay, great. So yeah, so I have a little bit of art on the UI, and which is really, really cool. And I also have like the elements in place, but they're not plugged in yet. So the health values on the characters' various parts are not plugged in yet, but the sort of like the plumbing is there. So as I cycle through, which is really neat, camera moves, and everything has been kind of sort of like polished a little bit as I go. So instead of just having the camera move, I have like some dampening effects on there, and I timed it out to make it feel good, and things like that. So as I go, I kind of make it polished a little bit, at least an initial pass, but everything is going to change, right? This is very early on. So when I do go into a character, it brings up a couple little things. So you could tell that the UI is temporary. It's kind of a little janky in terms of the way it looks. But yeah, so I can move, I could action, and I could wait. Move is very cool. So when I do move, it sort of shows the hexes that are available for where this character could go. And that does read into the distance of where the characters, like his, each character will have a different amount of move tile points essentially. And it will just sort of check, that one also moves a lot. That one also moves a lot. That one moves a little less, that type of thing. So it sort of shows where you could move with that character. There are some other things I could do with the move, but in terms of like showing how far they could move, but I just sort of implemented an initial kind of like bare bones, this is the zone you could move in type thing. Other things that I could probably do is like if I start moving and his points get reduced, is I could update this range to show where you can go now from this point. This sort of like just shows the whole big thing where, you can go anywhere you want. Let me just keep going with other features on the move. So how do you interface with it? Well, right now it's all joystick. I haven't quite implemented keyboard and mouse yet. But what's really neat is based off of the camera angle, I could push up and it will point the arrow up. And I could push down, it will point the arrow down, and it will take the camera angle into consideration. And why am I pointing an arrow? Is so that I can start drawing the path I want this character to follow. So when I draw a path, I could have him sort of move there if I want him to. So that's super awesome. Same thing for this character here. I can go in and just sort of like draw a little path for him and sort of have him move, right? And this character here, same thing. So I can go over here, draw a path. Now, what if I kind of wanted to back out of that a little bit? I could back out square by square and just redraw. So the second that the joystick gets an input, the arrow shows up. And I could just kind of like redraw his path to something new. Another thing too is when I was testing this and building it out, I noticed, oh, well, if I do like a circle and I start drawing over a path that already exists, that would make no sense at all. And the character would spend all these points just to move like a few little tiles when he has so much more points available. So what I've done is on the UI, when you're inputting the action you want to do, is you can kind of like draw over and it will remove everything up to that point, give you back the movement points, and you can continue drawing up to where you want to go. Super cool. So I really do enjoy the way this works, because as I kind of move the camera around and I kind of like choose to hold on, move him, I could push up on the joystick and it's always the same up, and it feels really good. It feels really, really nice. Whoops. Oh, locked into my mic there. So yeah, so that's that one there. And then the actions here. Oh, my keyboard, or not my keyboard, my joystick unhooked again. I have a bit of a bug. There's something going on where my joystick disconnects. So now, what I could do too is actions. So what I do is, again, this UI is very temporary. I started building out a rudimentary inventory. Now there's no UI for the player to start adding and removing items himself. But in the code, what I do is when I start the engine, basically it assigns inventory items to characters like it was an inventory. And those items have abilities like attack, and there's stats and things on them as well. So what I did here is on this character here, I've assigned 3 items that contain abilities, actionable abilities. So there's a practice axe, a practice bow, and a practice consumable. And I called those items practice just because, I'm just practicing and putting it together and learning how it's going to really fit together at the end of the day. So they're just kind of like placeholder assets for now. But you could see here on the practice axe, you could see the range that it has, that it will be able to attack in the red that surrounds the unit. And you could also see the bow has a longer range for that same ability attack. So the parameters are unique per item, as it should be. And then what you could do is you could just click on the attack. And in this case here, there's only 1 unit that was in range for that attack. So what I could do, so the camera goes to it directly, and I have a temporary UI that's in place where it's just like a red line and a little red dot that goes over the unit. I can confirm that, and it performs a little attack on that enemy. And if I go on, let's say on this one here, I go on the attack for the practice bow. Well, the practice bow, there's 2 units that are in range. So what it does there is when I hit attack, it will choose one, but I could cycle through the 2, so I could choose which one I want to attack. right? And then I could attack the one I want. And that's super cool. One of the last things I did actually the last thing I did was I added this big guy here because I wanted to get a sense of what larger boss monsters would generally look like. So I have him there. But another one of the last things I've implemented was the icons over the characters' heads. So something that I would notice as I was sort of like prototyping and testing was there was no way for me to see where the characters, if the characters were still able to move or attack, because there's like an action point and a move point that units can do per turn. So if I grab my little pencil here that I haven't used yet, the idea is that, let me just find the spot, right? So here there's a kind of a circle and a little arrow pointing to his head, whereas the one completely on the right, I'll have to find a better solution for this, but this one here has the circle and the arrow, but also has another little arrow between the two. You know what I mean? And then this one here, just find the spot here. This one here doesn't have the little circle, has the little echelon in between and the bigger arrow. And then this one over here, sorry, I'm going to have to find something to, this is the first time I use this. There we go. That one there just has an arrow. Now, why are they different? Well, those are what represent the points that are available left on a unit. And I wanted to try and make it in a way that it was easily readable to the player. Now that might change, like how they look and stuff like that. But the general idea of being able to see at a glance on the battlefield what units can do actions still, I really like that idea. So I'll see how that feels over time. But another sort of like thing that I want to do too is I really want to reduce the amount of UI. I want the characters to feel, or the player to feel like they're really in this world with the characters with minimal UI. So even the UI we see right now, which is Sir Dies a lot with a bunch of stats and things, like I kind of find that a little bit pushing it, even though that's the classic way of doing things. I might change that up in the future to try and reduce that as much as possible so that it's more about the art in the 3D world than it is about a bunch of UI stats and things like that. But the stats would still be there, but I'm trying to just figure out how to show them in more organic and less intrusive way. But anyways, so right now what I did is for now with the movement points or the action points, if a character still has them available, what I do is I change the icon over their head to represent what is still available for that character. So the dot is the action. The little echelon in between the dot and the main arrow is movement, and the main arrow is always there, but if there's nothing left, it's a thinner arrow. It changes a little bit of shape to make it even more obvious that that character is out of actions. So I'll show you an example. This character here, let me just erase the circles. So this character here has both his action and his movement. Now, if I go to him here and I move him, look at what happens when he moves. The arrow in the middle of the circle and the bigger arrow will disappear. So that's been used. If I make him now perform an action on a unit, the circle above him will disappear and the little arrow will change to a smaller, like pointier arrow. So there we go. He's all used up. So that's kind of how right now, and it's the only way for now, but that will need to change. There'll be another way to see it for sure. I would imagine there, it doesn't make sense, but to just have that. But that's how I'm seeing it right now. It's just a little thing over their head, which is really nice. You know, I gave it a little bit of love and I made it a little bit polished. So that's just a little thing I tested out that I'm pretty happy with for now. Besides that, yeah, I could click on select button here and it will launch a change turn. So it will cycle through to the enemy's turn and then back to the player's turn and re-give all the points back to the units. Now, right now it does cycle over to the AI, and the AI's default behavior right now is just to go back to the player, just skip turn. So I'll go ahead and do that, and keep your eye on any of the things over the characters' heads, and you'll see that all the points pop back up. So all the points are back, and the players can reperform all of their actions. So yeah, so that's where it is right now. I can't really think of anything else. But it feels really good. Like there's not much there right now, but so far it feels good. There's a couple more things that I want to implement. I'm still working on the ability system. And I should probably start looking into like making points to kill creatures so that they could die, you know, have some creatures that die when they take a certain amount of hits. Get that implemented correctly. So there's a lot of little things that need to be done just to get the sort of like the bare bones. But there's a lot more things that I've already discussed before, which is, you know, I want to have height on the terrain. I want to have cliff sides. I want to have various other things that need to be supported and thought out a little bit. But that's why, like, I want to focus on the battlefield, get the battlefield features really in place, get them really nice. And I also want to start working on like maybe the full gameplay loop with some other elements that are outside of the battlefield. Those I'm less concerned about in terms of complexity. But, you know, if I can get the full gameplay loop, that would be really cool. So yeah, so I hope that this video turned out really well. This is the first time I've tried this setup. So it's the first video I do with this, with the sound the way it is, with my little circle head, with the drawing tool. So I think it turned out pretty well, hopefully. And yeah, so thanks a lot if you watched all the way to the end, and I'll talk to you soon. Alrighty.